Welcome everybody. Thanks for being here with us to talk today about production of your own legume seeds. I'm very glad that the coordinators of the Global Bean Project invited me to coordinate this meeting, and we have a lot of really great speakers who joined today. Thanks to them already. Here the agenda. I'm gonna introduce a little bit the topic, and then Magdalena from Archenoa is going to tell us about the news in the EU regulation. And then we are going to meet 4 initiatives of seed savers who are doing a great work in a very diverse way, diverse perspectives to conserve legume biodiversity, to make it available. And then we are going to show you practical tips. We thought in September, for most of you, maybe some of the crops are already harvested, but maybe not all of the beans especially. So it may still be something you want to try this year. If not, then you will have the information to multiply your own seeds from next year. And we'll tell you about the next meetings, and we will have a question and answer round in the end. Maybe we finish a little bit after 6 because the speakers said they would be okay to answer some questions afterwards as well. We will try to take 1 or 2 questions from the chat after each presentation, and otherwise you know that there is room in the end of the meeting to discuss your questions in the chat. Okay, so maybe to start, why multiply your own seeds? It's quite some work, but it has a lot of benefits. So first of all, you can contribute toward maintaining the common heritage of biodiversity, which has been basically selected by generations and generations of gardeners and farmers. So then you also get access to a wider range of varieties than the ones that you can find easily in the shops. We'll talk about this also later. Like you see here in the picture, lots of different beans. These were all pole beans. So you get access to a huge diversity when you multiply your own seeds. Using older varieties, in contrast to the modern ones, will give you a longer harvest window. So for instance, the beans that you want to harvest green will give you green beans for several weeks, whereas the industrial varieties, the modern ones, are more homogeneous, and then you will only harvest 1 time in the year. They will come all at the same time, which is for the home cook not so good. Another benefit is that the plants will adapt to your local conditions over time. Since you reproduce the seeds, you sow the same seed every year in your own specific soil and climate zone. So then, since there is some variability in the older varieties, they will adapt to your conditions, and it will give you a greater autonomy. You can even do your own plant breeding. Jorge is going to tell us about the work he's doing on breeding. And then it's also a way to act towards civil disobedience against the increasingly restrictive laws which benefit to the big companies who try to gain the control over the seeds. So when you do them yourself, then you're independent. And why we think that legumes are an easy family to start multiplying your own seeds. The ones that we grow in our gardens are annual plants. So it's not like with carrots, for instance, where if you want to eat them, you harvest them in the first year. But if you want to get the seeds to sow them later, you need to wait for 1 more year, which is a little bit more tricky. The advantage with legumes is that the part that we harvest for seeds is the one that we also harvest to eat. So it can be the whole pod, like the green beans or the snap peas, for instance, but it can be also the seed itself, like with the pulses, as you can see on the picture on the right, or with the green peas, the fresh peas. Another advantage over maybe salads or cabbage is that the seeds are really big in comparison, and they are quite beautiful. You can recognize one variety from another quite often just by looking at the seed, which is not the case with all the garden crops. And we will develop this later, but it's also legumes also have the advantage that some of the species don't cross too much, so you don't have to separate the varieties to avoid them mixing up. Although we will see that for the faba beans, for instance, this is not the case. So, but for most of the species, you can multiply several of the varieties in your own garden without too much problem. So now I hope that you have got some insights about why you could start multiplying your own seeds. Maybe you are already doing it and you have some other reasons. You are very welcome to write us in the chat if you have some more. Now I will give the word to Magdalena from Archenoa in Austria, who will give us an update about the EU seed marketing legislation. So Magdalena, please.
Hello, and nice to see you again and to talk in front of you again. So I'm going to talk about the news in the EU seed marketing legislation. And the first question, of course, is what have rare and old varieties got to do with politics? And the answer is a lot, or even pretty much everything, because parliaments and governments decide what ends up on our fields, in the garden beds, on the markets, and on our plates. So it's really necessary to advocate for better laws and to enforce policies that enforce biodiversity and they ensure healthy and tasty and good food for everyone. Could you go on to the next slide, please, Nicola? So for now, the EU seed marketing legislation, it was written in the 1960s. So it has a strong focus on industrialization and productivity, which obviously it's a child of its time. And the main pillars are the variety registration. You find these in the green letters in the middle. So the DUS criteria. DUS is for distinctiveness, uniformity, and stability. And there you see, this is not going very well with old varieties because they're not known for being very uniform or very stable even in their yields. And also agricultural crops require VCU testing. So they are tested on their value for cultivation and use. This is also a very critical point because a big focus on the testing here is on the yield. So for now, the EU seed marketing legislation is going to be reformed. The last reform, it was from 2008 to 2015, was luckily stopped by civil society. And this is a very good start in order to promote those policies that work on biodiversity and old varieties. And so especially because those land races do not fulfill those criteria, I will also talk about the organic heterogeneous material. But for now, let's go on to the next slide, please. So as you see, diversity is highly regulated. It's important to know that this is a visualization of the legal regime. So the size of pillars is not based on quantitative data, but you see that outside of the scope. For example, in Austria, it's allowed to hand out small quantities of non-registered varieties. In Poland as well, and for the most part of it, mostly is the mainstream and industry-friendly regime. And if you go on to the next slide, we see that law is a bit like cheese. So this is what I also wrote the thesis on. There is space for diversity inside. There's all those derogations, but a lot of the member states don't use it or they don't know how to use it because it's very difficult and not easy to understand and explain and make sense of all those law texts. But in the next slide, I will show you some best practice examples. So in Austria, the exchange of seeds, also against money, of non-registered varieties is allowed. In Denmark, the sale to private gardeners is not regulated neither. And in France, associations can sell non-registered seeds to amateur gardeners. So all these countries made good use of the cheese host. And why do we need new rules to enable diversity, or just we need those rules? So we need to bring back agrobiodiversity on our fields. For now, it's clear we need a broad transformation, also often framed as a system change, and the current legislation does not make this possible. So diverse seeds are really prerequisites, so we cannot do without those for resilient and low input agriculture. And if this is not allowed, there's more pressure for technological fixes part of the Green Deal, such as new genetically modified plants. They will increase even more, or also what we have on the markers and procedures leading up to them. And it's also really important to respect the farmers' rights to seeds. So there you see what is outside of the scope. So the conservation activities, organizations and individuals are in this. Also the exchange of seeds and selling to amateur gardeners. And also without quantity restrictions and non-hybrid. So there's the adapted criteria. And for now, there's already some rumors on what will be, what could potentially be part of the new seed legislations. There's going to be a simplification of sale to hobby gardeners. Then hopefully there will be some new sustainability criteria to those VCU, those value for cultivation and test and use tests. And probably pretty clearly also the use of genetic markers in the variety registration and the simplification of amateur and conservation varieties. The next slide, please. So those are the current options as they're proposed by the European Commission. Option 0 is continue as it was, which is not planned, seeing that the first reform was already overthrown. Then there's the second option, which would be slightly better, but not, yeah. Then there's the option 2, which is more space for diversity, but not enough, and it would also need improvement. And the option 3, which would be strong overregulation, which means extreme limitations for diversity. This is very dangerous. So exchange will be regulated, there's no niche, and this is a massive threat to the conservation and use of crop diversity. On the next slide. There we have a small timeline. So as I said, the last reform was stopped. Then in the second and third quarter of this last year, the EU Commission published 2 studies. Then in this year, until March, there was a public consultation. And for now, we are waiting for the Commission to propose. It says here it's going to be in December 2022. As it seems now, it's more likely to be done by April or March next year. And there's a new hope for farmer seeds on the horizon. It's called OHM, which is the short form for organic heterogeneous material. And there's going to be some new exceptions in order to use this. And we have started to register the first varieties in Austria, and one of those is a Faba bean from the Pustertal, which you can see on the next slide. It's a local variety handed down over generations, and it's adapted to be cultivated in very high altitudes. As you know, Austria is a very mountainous region, so this also includes late frosts and cold nights. And they're not very heterogeneous in regard to the number of beans per pot and the size of beans themselves, and also the shape of the bean pots. And with this notifications of OHM in Europe, there's going to be a big step towards policies that allows to promote this biodiversity and to ensure land races and organic heterogeneous material to be present on the market as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Magdalena. I think I see no question in the chat right now, but please do ask questions and we can have a discussion in the end. Maybe you want to know some very concrete question, like I am allowed to give all kind of seeds to my friends, or is there a rule, or what about these people who are selling seeds? Are they actually allowed to do it if the variety is not registered? All these kind of questions we can also discuss afterwards. Then let's meet the seed savers and present various initiatives as I introduced. Magdalena is also going to talk for her association Arche Noah in a minute. But now I'd like to invite Ivana from Serbia to introduce us the perspective she has from a seed bank. Ivana, please.
Hello. Hello to everybody. First of all, thank you for inviting me to present initiative here, and I hope I will be helpful for people which want to grow beans or grow beans. I'm actually, I work at University of Belgrade, Faculty of Agriculture, and I did my PhD on drought stress of different crops. And what I actually noticed that we need more science on the field. And because of that, I started community seed bank here in Serbia because I'm a village kid, and a lot of my colleagues who are in the network are also from the village. We have our own farms, and we wanted to see diversity not just in the lab, but also in the field. Community seed bank in Serbia actually is quite young. We developed it in 2019, and some of the stuff we do is actually collecting the different seeds, also networking with all seed savers from Serbia. This is one very successful seed saving initiative in Serbia. They actually have a really impressive collection of beans. It's not our collection, it's their collection. They're really good in that, so I wanted to show what they have. Also, we collect the different samples, multiply, have free seed sharing events. But of course, during our scientific work, we like to explore seeds and to see what's more in them and what is the quality of traditional varieties, because we have some data, but there is not much to read about those seeds and about their quality, protein, starch content, and so on. And we also collect different recipes and other cultural informations about the varieties that we find in the field. When we find new seed, for example, I don't know, new sample, then we feel something that we call seed passport, and I think this will be interesting part for seed collectors, if there are any in this group. I hope there are, and for all people that like to take the seed from neighbors and so on. It's nice to write some stuff about the seeds in order to follow the history of the seed. Those data are very important if you want for a community to have the rights over seeds. It's very important to have this data. This is the passport that we use, but of course you can adapt it. I promised to translate it to English and I will do that. So you can actually, I will provide it in English for everyone who wants to have it. Here you have information about the household where you found the seed. You write what they do, how big is the household. These data are important if you want to see which households, the size of the household has the most of the diversity, and of course how long they have the seeds, how the seed got into the family. For example, if it's 100 years, you can be sure it's very traditional for that area. Then you write all about the seed, the name, the size, the way of sowing, the time of sowing, agriculture practices, do they irrigate the land or not, do they use fertilizers, organic fertilizers, from which animal, and so on. And of course, how they use the seed, how they save the seeds, and of course the recipes. We usually, when we are on the field, we take also GPS coordinates in order, if you want to come back like next year, if you lose the variety, so we can find those places again. And of course the contact of the person who is giving us the seeds.
Ivana,
yeah?
you want to tell us which species you multiply in your community seed bank from the first slide?
Yeah, from the first slide, we can see here that we have mostly the common bean seeds. We also some small samples of runner bee. Here in one village, we also get the tepari bean. This picture here that you just showed, it's Lathyrus sativus, grass pea. It's very traditional for one part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it's actually on slow food list for very specific food of that area. They make very specific meals of made of that. Then the next one is lab. It is grown in Serbia as ornamental plant, not edible, because people didn't know it can be eaten. And actually people grow it like very beautiful plant with big leaves and nice flowers. And above it is one very old variety of bean that we found on a mountain in Serbia. It was grown for 100 years in one family, which is quite a lot because bean didn't came to Serbia so long ago. So it's very old one. Also above that is one picture made of beans, actually, because we collaborate with different societies. One of them is the society for people who are blind, and they actually really like to make images with beans, and they actually gave this as a gift for our community seed bank, and we save it really it's very dear present. And we also make some meals. This is a meal, traditional pate made of beans, which is really traditional in Serbia, and it was made in the 19th century. So it was very old meal.
Right.
So,
yeah. Can you tell us a little bit, because you are a researcher, so you work with seed banks where the seeds are stored for a long time, which is called ex situ conservation, but you also work within this project in situ conservation. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the complementarity between those two.
Yeah, I like to say, as you can see, that those are the two sides of the same coin, which in practice don't cooperate as much as they should, maybe in some countries, but it's very important that ex situ and situ initiatives work together. Usually when we say ex situ, we think of the gene banks in institutions, faculties, institutes, scientific research institutions. And when we say in situ, we usually think on farm, in small households, villages, and so on. Usually that's the case, but if we have in situ, for us, it's very good to have backup in some institutions. Why? Because institution can provide us identification of those seeds, can provide data about the quality, can provide data about characterization, and can provide the data which is really important about resistance to some specific stuff that we don't recognize maybe as gardeners. And for ex situ conservation institutions, it's very important to allow those seeds to evolve, to continue evolution in real time and real space, to adapt to whatever is coming in the future. Because if you didn't grow seeds for 40 years, it was in the ice, -80, it's not so good. You need to allow the species to be exposed to different conditions, especially regarding the climate change. We need to see what's going on the field. Of course, both approaches actually are focused on, when I say ex situ and situ, I of course talk about plant diversity in food and agriculture. And what I like to say, ex situ saves the results of adaptation process, in situ keeps the process alive. So I mean, that's important to mention, and to say that both of the systems are equally important, but scientific literature says that in situ on farm is the most resilient and most resistant level of seed saving. That's important to mention.
Thanks a lot. Maybe you can tell us in 1 minute, because we're a bit late already. Okay. One or two challenges that you face when you go with this community seed bank. One or two of the most important ones, because we don't have time.
Yeah, maybe just two. Something that we can, how to say, prevent new diseases and pests, and of course to increase our knowledge how to keep those seeds and genotypes high quality and authentic, because it's very easy to lose it. Can we just move to the next slide just fastly? Yeah, it's just important to grow enough plants. Some of you will see here, to prevent loss of genes, it's 30 to 60 plants minimum. And here it's important not to take just 5 or 10 seeds from the person that you are taking seed from. Just take more and plant more. Like, we need more legumes and we need more seeds when we plant. Can we go to the next slide? Of course, to prevent intercross between varieties, we need to learn how to do that correctly. We mentioned, of course, for the beans, it's not a huge problem, but still some precaution measures should be done. And of course, we need to follow our plants. If we see something is wrong, that some plants don't look good, we need to remove them fast and far away. And of course, what is important, we need to take care of which seeds we take, are they healthy without any spots and stuff. And that is something that we can do. And one very important thing that I have to say, if you see constant problem in your bean plantation, constant disease or pest, you can always find in your country like phytopathologist, send a picture please, and like ask, because it's important to follow these processes that can destroy the production. So then basically that's it. Sorry, I spent a little bit more time in the beginning. So yeah.
Thanks so much, Ivana. It was great. I think your work is a great example of the complementarity between the work you do in the research and the work with the communities and really on the field and very practical work, which is important to combine.
I think we need more of that, connecting science and farm.
Now we're going to listen to Magdalena again, who is going to tell us about Archenoa's current projects about legume diversity. Magdalena?
I'm going to talk about the Seed Saver Network and the programs that we use on participatory projects on legumes. So if you switch to the next slide and then the next, and one more please. So there's this Archenoa seed archive. It has 5,500 accessions in Austria. And once you collected all the seeds, like there's the next question, how do you keep them alive? What is the next step there? And as Archenoa's show garden is situated in the, let's go back one more. Archenoa's show garden is situated in one region of Austria, which is also used for wine growing and consumption. This already shows that it's a bit warmer and sunnier compared to other regions. It's important to keep in mind that a lot of these seeds need different geographical and climatic conditions in order to grow well and to keep their characteristics. So over the last 20 years, Archenoa established a strong seed savers network. So this has approximately 300 participants all over Italy, Germany, Austria, of course, and they're organized in 3 different seed saver programs, which I'm going to talk about next. And of course, you don't have to be a farmer in order to participate in this network. You can also be a hobby gardener or a professional gardener. And there's around 100 people with regular contact to the Archenoa Seed Saver Network, and there's one person at Archenoa who is responsible for the organization and involvement of everyone. And to the next slide. So as I said, the Archenoa Seed Saver Network spans over different regions in Austria, Germany, and Italy. The suitability of the varieties for those areas is determined, and those varieties can be conserved in these regions. The varieties are available for growers and can be kept in cultivation, of course, and we also hand out descriptions and variety informations beforehand, and we continue checking them to see if they're still up to date or not. And we also give support to those who are working in the conservation. And on the next slide, you can see that there's the 3 different seed saver programs that we have. And the seed savers can decide in which programs they want to be part of. So the first program is the temporary cultivation. These are working closely with the seed archive, and they're handed out varieties each spring. I will talk a bit more about it in the next. Then there's also the seed guardians to save the seeds for their personal usage, and they keep those seeds in their garden. And then there's this third option of the variety handbook. So there's an online registry where all members of Archenoa can list which varieties they're working with, and they can also exchange and send post letters to each other containing seeds. And there you see the seed in motion. So there's the seed archive handing the seeds to the seed guardians. Then they get to the temporary cultivation and back to the seed archive or to the variety handbook. As I said, it's a bit more separate and it doesn't go back to the seed archive. And on the next slide, I will go a bit more into detail with the temporary cultivation. So this is the active help we need. We send out, or the seed archive sends out a list of varieties that is in need for cultivation. I'm told there's this traffic light system. So the red ones are the ones that should really be cultivated and renewed this year. Orange is it can be this year or next year, and green is still fine. All the seed savers can choose 1 to 3 varieties. Some can also, of course, choose more. And in 2021, we had 110 varieties for 50 seed savers. So it was mostly common beans, tomatoes, and cucumbers, also 7 peas and other cultivated plants. And in autumn, the seed is going to be sent back to Achenord, and there's a quality check regarding germination and also different pests, and it's archived. And then next Seed Savers program is the Seed Guardian. So this is usually a person that's dedicating themselves to one variety, and they cultivate it permanently in their private gardens. And every 3 years in cultivation and seed conservation in the garden, and every 5 to 7 years to send the material back to the archive. And we also do this with vegetative materials such as shallots and potatoes. Here you see how it looks like when the seeds come back to the archive. So it comes in any kind of containers, and it's labeled and cleaned, and silver sacks are used for refrigeration. And then also Achenord runs or has been running different participatory projects in the past. So one big was called Cultivating Bean Diversity, with where we sent out around 500 bean varieties to everyone who registered for this project, actually. And there were sent weekly newsletters. We were giving workshops on how to take care of the seeds and the plants, also cooking classes, of course. And we had project meetings in the field. A second big participatory project from the last 2 years was called Breed Your Colorful Snow Pea. So as we heard before, the snow pea doesn't have to be green, and my colleague figured out ways to cross to make it appear orange or purple or red or yellow with purple flecks and spots. And we are also giving out instructions on how to cross the peas in order to obtain different characteristics, and also bring back this knowledge to people, because in the previous time it was not seen as this very special knowledge that only some experts have. But it's actually really easy. You don't need to be a scientist. You don't even need to be a monk in Germany, as it was Gregor Mendel. You just need pliers and a bit of time, as you see in this picture here. And on this next page, I show you some examples of what we did in the last year, and also on how these projects reached out to others. So of course, if you want to maintain bean diversity, it's also really important to know what it tastes like. Here you see a normal Phaseolus tasting, but we also worked a lot with Vicia Faber in the last few years, and we were ordering varieties of Vicia Faber from breeders in order to eat them and to find out their culinary traits. And it was very funny because the breeders told us, oh, this Vicia Faber is perfect for chickens. And we were like, no, but we're going to eat it. Like, we don't care how much vicin it has or not. We really want to find out the way it tastes. And of course, also for the projects, and there were people coming towards us saying, hey, we have this special bean variety in our garden, and it's been there for such a long time, and I didn't know it was a treasure. So in this picture you see here Annie, who handed over her Phaseolus to us, and she was very proud of having heard about this on the radio. So it's also really important to keep in mind the visibility and the outreach of the projects. And another outcome of this project was a small gallery of beans. So we asked everyone who took part in this participatory project to write a small description of their beans and write what they liked about it, or what they encountered during growing it. So there's this gallery, as you see it here. It contains around 120 different beans, and yeah, this is how we do it. And it's also really important to give on the knowledge to prevent intercrossing and the loss of like genes and stability, as Ivana said. And therefore, we also give out those guidebooks and are always willing to answer questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Magdalena. It was a nice tour of all what you're doing, dealing with pulses and legumes in general. Now I would like to invite Jorge from Portugal, who's working.
Before that, there is a question in the chat, if there is time for it. So Carola Blessing from LTZ asks, how was the feedback on the snow pea breeding project, and what was the success rate of crossing snow peas?
So the feedback was really great. We did not so the seeds we handed out were not the parent lines, but we handed out the F4 or F5, the generation after it was quite stable already. But we were showing the participants how we did it in the first step, and yeah. So they were handed out varieties that were already either red or yellow or purplish, and they were asked to select it and to keep it in their home gardens and keep on selecting for what they like the best. It could be the color, it could be the way they grow, it could be the taste, and to make it their own variety independently from us in the future.
Thank you. I think we need to move on, otherwise we will be late. I would like to invite Jorge from Living Seeds to show us what he's doing in his breeding project. Jorge.
Okay, hello everyone. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be part of this meeting. And it's a great honor also to share with such good works that I'm seeing now in the presentations. I will share with you a little bit of my experience as a plant breeder, mostly here in Portugal, where I live and from where I am. And of course, specifically for the legumes and the project that we are doing here. So next slide, please, Nicholas. So first of all, let me just explain a little bit. I'm representing an association which is called Lebende Samen in German, Living Seeds in English, of course. We are a non-profit association, and we are focused on plant breeding for resistance and for good nutritional values. And we are raising funds from individuals, foundations, national governments, European Commission, to try to create new varieties and to work with open pollinated varieties also. Here, of course, I will talk about a project of legumes that we are taking care here in Portugal and also in Morocco. Our main goal is to register new cross-border varieties of broad beans and peas. Mostly our main focus is as it's in the Mediterranean and in Portugal, specifically Spain, Morocco. We are trying to find good material to work for it and drought resistance, which, as you know, we are facing a very big problem with that, and also in the north of Europe. But here we are starting to have very, very serious issues about the varieties, what we are working with, but they are not responding as well as they should. And also we are simulating models and systems for small scale farming in organic production, of course. So next slide, please, Nicholas. Yeah, our milestones as a classical breeding project, it's seed selections, exchange and data collection in each place where we are working, and then try to find in the end of the project interesting material to start a pre-registration process of these varieties, and of course dissemination in seminars and conferences of the project. Next slide, please, Nicola. So now we are working in 5 different locations in 2 countries, as I said, Portugal and Morocco. I personally work in Mértola, which is in the south of Portugal, the yellow dot. And then we have another place, which is Ideia Nova in the center of Portugal, and 3 places in Morocco, doing all the same trials, working with the same material, and like a parallel shuttle breeding, we are doing the same methodology and protocol, and to compare the results as far as possible with the same data. Next slide. Yeah. So as I said, we are working with broad beans and peas. The material, the seeds that we got, the land races or accessions, came from public and private seed banks, mostly from the north of Africa, from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Morocco. I forgot to say to you, yes, each trial belongs to the responsibility of one different institution in each country and each location. So most of the material came from the north of Africa, from Lebanon, from Egypt, from Morocco, and some of that also from Portugal. The criteria for the pre-selection of the seeds that we are working and the land races or accessions were the previous characterizations in the banks, and also the experience and knowledge of the donors of this material, according to our most important goal, which is the drought resistance and heat resistance in the periods of the crops. To basically, it was a pre-selection based on experience, and then now we are trying to prove it in scientific ways, let's say that way. So this is a little example of our block designs, how we work scientifically to create data. I will not be very detailed about it, just describe you that for the peas we are talking about, we choose 12 different phenotypic traits or descriptors, and 20 for the broad beans. Phenotypic traits means the visual characters that we can see in the field of the plants, botanical characters. For example, here we have for the Pisum sativum, for the peas, foliage color. It's very intuitive. It's not that difficult to understand why we do it. You can see here foliage color, color of flowers, things that can distinct the populations between them, and that we can see they are different, and that distinctness is very important, as Magdalena told, for the creation of new varieties. The same for fabas. We'll see in the results why we use, for example, the different colors of the flowers to characterize the different populations. And of course, another intuitive and logical descriptors are the agronomical ones, to register the dates of the sowings, the emergence, the flowerings, the harvests, also the different behaviors of the plants in the field with drought resistance, the plant height, the plant tilt tendency, plant health, identifying possible diseases that are in the field. And also in the next slide, you can see we also focus, and we have to, in the yield, because that's also a very important thing when we are based in stress conditions, to see what are the best performing ones in terms of yield. That's also an important parameter to choose and to select the next ones for the next years of growing. Here, the results you can see for the broad beans. I choose these pictures that you saw just to show you a little bit of the process. Of course, we register and we look at the germinations. This second picture from the left, it's a field in Marchouch in Morocco. All the pictures of this presentation are from the trials that we are using. This is a fava trial in Marchouch, and then of course we also look at the fruits, the legumes itself, the fabas in this case, to see the differences and to measure their yields. The next one, as I explained to you, as you can see there, you can see here 4 different phenotypic colors of the flowers. And that's very important, as I also said, to distinct the populations. We worked with 7 different populations of fabas. In the case here of peas, you can keep it there. We worked with 26 different land races or accessions. Here, the second picture from the left, it's a trial from Ideia in the center of Portugal. The picture is the same. You can see the legumes are different. There are 2 accessions different. And then again, the next slide, you can see also differences between the flowering of the populations. And that's quite important also. for us. And in the end of after the field data and field registration, we have lots and lots and lots of data to process and to analyze. But that's a very, or the most important step maybe for the next year selection. It's always to look at the data that was registered and start to do some analysis and to think about what we should do for the next year. Of course, here we created 15,000 cells this year of data that will be processed. Now we are here in the next steps. We are facing the end of the first year, so we are doing the data analysis, choosing the criteria for the selection for the next year, establishing a new trial design for the second year, and starting the sowing for the second year, which will be a little bit the same of the first with the second selection, but also we'll try to put new traits for analysis as nutritional values, because we are working with the crops for human consumption. So it's very important to look at the nutritional values also to be a criteria also for selection. And then in the third year, to do a final one, to start also doing crossings if we find it interesting. And also the idea of creating an organic heterogeneous material of the populations that we find interesting and compare them with the isolated populations and see in terms of yield or behavior or resistance if there are advantages doing the heterogeneous material otherwise than the isolated. I can show you here, as Nicola asking me to show a little bit, because this photo, as you can see, that it doesn't have much quality because of the reflection of the bags. I don't know if the webcam will be better, maybe not. But yes, I can show you some different kinds of fabas. I don't know if you can see. My webcam is not that good also. And,
no, we don't see it very well.
Because I have the light backwards.
What you told me, what you didn't mention now, is that you are breeding these peas and beans for both consumption in green, in fresh stage, yes, and also in dry stage, so as cooked dry seeds, which is interesting. If you manage to have varieties that do both, then people can just choose to have the one or the other.
That's one thing that we'll focus now in the second year. It's this kind of perception, if the best ones also for dry and the best ones for fresh, as well as flavor, and of course in yield. That's a very important thing to take care. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jorge. It's nice to see you, and good luck for the next years. And I hope you can go. Once you have done the crossings, it's just kind of the beginning of the story, right? Then the varieties take some more years before they're ready.
Yes. This is a first step of the project, because it's impossible to breed in 3 years with materials that you don't know about it, or you don't even know if it's what kind of material you are working. You have the pre-characterization from the donors, but that's not enough. And yeah, to find out good varieties, it takes a little bit more of time than 3 years. This is just the beginning of the process. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Remember that you can ask questions in the chat. Maybe we don't take more now, but we use them for the discussion in the end.
And I hope to share with you the next year the results also.
Yeah, would be great. Please.
Okay, thank you.
I want to invite Patrick from the south of Germany to tell us about his small-scale company multiplying and selling seeds.
Yes, thank you very much. Hello, everybody together. Thanks a lot for giving the chance to introduce our work here very shortly. Maybe as I talk, we can just go through the slides, as I brought a few impressions of our small-scale initiative, where we try to preserve and promote the local and regional varieties. And that's a major part of my work, that I'm going to search for the old heirloom vegetable varieties and try to bring it back to the gardens and to the plates, and encourage people, especially also in their own seed saving. And of course, legumes are a great example for that. We can just go through the next slides, where we see a few pictures. It's all mostly done manually. We have 14 different multiplication sites in order to avoid crossings. Every year we manage to bring out a few hundred different varieties and test them, and the best of them will end up in our assortment, which you can find under our homepage, tartgut.de. Here are a few examples from our beans diversity. We just want to encourage people and motivate and show them how great diversity can be and give them new motivation for their growing. Now coming how we multiply the seeds. Here we can see a few impressions from some of our fields. Here there are different beans. Sometimes we work in the middle of the old fruit trees, which is nice to have different sites also to compare the different characteristics of the seeds. Here, for example, for our region, it's very special. We grow hops, and the hops grow 6 meters high. And this year we did some trials where we let the beans, the scarlet runner beans, climb 6 meters high, and they even reached the top earlier than the hop, which we have for beer brewing. And this can be interesting for our farmers, which have this infrastructure of high climbing possibilities, not only for hops, but also for beans. We wait for the legumes until they really dry, and then we harvest them and further process them. We look for good quality, and therefore it's nice, as we still have a lot of manual work, depending on the quantity of the seeds as well. We always start with a few handful of seeds, and then we multiply them up. And here you can see how we thresh. We build our own small threshing systems where we hit out the kernels from the shells, and then we get this beautiful small art pieces of seeds, which we try to bring back into the gardens, depending on the different varieties, and also to tell the stories about the varieties. It's very important for us to communicate where these varieties come from and what is the background of them and how many generations they go back, and that we have this regional varieties. So that's major part that we give encouragement for the local varieties, which are about to vanish. Here we also have a loss of seeds, about 57 to 90%. Some of them are a bit more tricky, which need some kind of climbing possibilities. As you all know, for the peas and the climbing runner beans and everything, we have to get a bit creative how we can keep them up and build something to climb. But yeah, we are always happy about the different varieties and the colors. And then it's a bit of work with the 14 different places to keep everything in view and to get the right ripening and harvesting timing in order to get good quality seeds. And we have a plenty different legumes, not only beans, but also fava beans, lentils, and all kind of lupines and things. We do germination tests before we pack them, and then mostly we sell to private gardeners, which also want to get in this kind of bags. There's this varieties into their home gardens, and also benefit from this nice characteristics these varieties bring. And I'm also a part of a network in the southern part of Germany. We not only do legumes, of course, we have a lot of different things here, but as a part of the network seedbank, which aims to connect all the seed savers here in the southern Germany place, we mostly focus on this search for the vanishing seeds. I think that is something special nowadays. As we already lost major parts, not so many people are actively going for the search, and we even cycle around and cycle through the villages in order to find these varieties again and make them known again. So that is the specialty about our network and the way we work. And we call our campaign the Seed Detectives, and we are always happy to hear from people. If they have some old varieties, they can get in touch with us. We can get to know more about it and try to bring it back on the fields and on the plates. Thanks a lot so far for your attention, and maybe we get a bit more time later for questions.
Thanks so much, Patrick. It was great to see so many pictures, beautiful pictures from your 14 different multiplication places. Looks like a lot of fun, but also a lot of work.
Yep, very true. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Now I think it's the good transition because we are a bit out of schedule. I hope it's okay that the meeting lasts for a little bit more, but now we want to show you very concrete advice if you want to multiply your own seeds, and maybe to start with, where to find the seeds. So Patrick just mentioned his small business in the south of Germany. He's shipping to whole Europe. I just listed a few possible seeds. So of course you can get them from your friends. You know, word of mouth is a very good tool. Your neighbors. You can find them in seed markets, in gardening fairs. Most of you probably know that. And I put in brackets garden supermarkets and agricultural seed companies, because probably that's not where you will find the small quantities. Agriculture seed companies sell in 20 or 25 kilo bags. So for your garden, it may be a bit much. And the garden supermarkets, most of the time they sell modern varieties, which don't have these local specificities, but some of them also sell really good varieties. So you may have a look there. And then we started to look for lists of companies like the one Patrick just mentioned. And our partner Seeds for All, actually on their website, they have already a map of seed suppliers. If you click on your country, if, for instance, here Italy, you can find a list. In Italy, they have only one, but I don't know, maybe in Germany they have several. You have Bingenheimer Saatgut and the one that Jorge is working with. So here there is already a list of places where you can find them, and we are building a table, some kind of database. So please, now it's time to welcome you to add here in this list. The link will be shared. In this list, you can add your favorite seed supplier. So that good, Patrick is there. We added a few more, but we know that there are much more. It's just the matter of entering them in the list, providing the link, and you may add some comments about this specific source for seeds. Then this will be public, of course, and everyone can have a look there to find seeds. I go on to contribution from München in the south of Germany as well. We have the Show Garden, which is doing great work in explaining how to multiply the seeds. So we have Gabby here with us. Gabby.
Yes, hello. My name is Gabi. I'm from the ÖBZ in Munich. And we are a group of volunteers. We collect also bean varieties. We have around 200 at the moment, and we try to sustain them as seed savers. This year we take part in the Global Bean Project with the Show Garden. We made several videos from sowing beans to seed storage. And today I'd like to show you a cutoff of our video where we harvest the bean seed, or how you can harvest the bean seed in your own garden. Yeah, enjoy the video. There is no noise from the video, I think.
You don't hear anything from the video, right?
Yeah.
Well, I thought it would work. I'm really sorry. Then I guess the best way is that you can see this video on the YouTube channel. I'm not sure it's there yet, but it will be in the very next days. I think Anne will do her best to publish it as soon as possible, right?
But maybe I can explain a little bit.
Yeah, you can also talk about,
yeah. Yeah, here you can.
I let it run and you just talk.
Yeah, here in this picture you can see that if you want to harvest the bean for seed saving, you have to keep it that it is really dry. So it should be like paper. And here is our harvest. Here we did the ones which are not so good on a separate site. We pull it. And we try to collect them, that the not typical we put away.
Now I just found the parameter. Maybe I can share the audio now. Let's see if it works. Can you hear it now?
Keine Ahnung. Tierchen, Pilz, weiß nicht. Kommen einfach weg. Vielleicht war es einfach auch eine schlecht ausgebildete Hülse, die wir vorher nicht aussortiert hatten. Fleckige, das heißt nicht unbedingt, dass sie dann nicht keimen, aber man weiß nie. Man sagt, für Saatgut nimmt man die besten Samen. Jetzt haben wir hier eine ganz große und kleinere. Das ist aber keine unterschiedlich große Bohne, sondern die eine ist schon trockener und die andere hat einfach noch mehr Wasser. Die wird deutlich kleiner, wenn sie vollends ausgetrocknet ist, was sie ja muss, damit es als Saatgut haltbar ist. Man hört es auch. So ein dumpfer Ton. Da haben wir schon das Hellere gehört. Wenn ich jetzt eine trockene nehme, so ein Klackton. Die sind also schon recht trocken. Wir werden es trotzdem nur ein bisschen nachtrocknen, denn ein zweiter Test auf Trockenheit ist der Fingernageltest. In einer wirklich feuchten Bohne geht der Fingernagel richtig rein und macht die Hülle kaputt. Jetzt bei den fast trockenen, da gibt die Bohne nach und man sieht deutlich den Abdruck, das heißt, sie ist noch nicht trocken, obwohl sie beim Falltest schon recht hell klingt.
So in the end it works, so you could hear the sound from the video, I think, right?
Yeah, and this to check if the bean is really dry is important, because to storage the bean or before storaging it, we freeze it because of bugs, and if the beans are not really dry and you freeze it, you will damage it. So it is important to have really dry beans.
Exactly, and Patrick, who just presented his business, also produced for the Global Bean Project an information sheet about all these things that you need to know to be able to multiply your seeds. So in addition to what Gabby showed us in their really nice video, there are also some other points that Patrick is going to show us quickly now, and you will be able to find this cultivation instruction in the next few days on the Global Bean platform.
Yes, exactly. Here we try to summarize what is important, some major points. If you are now ready to multiply your own legume seeds, I think it's a very good thing to start with seed multiplication, to go with legumes. They are really nice to work with. You can easily see the kernels. They produce seeds in the first year. Here in the beginning, you have the connection, which species are next to each other, which belongs to each other. And then besides the points why you should do it, we describe for every species here, or for some, how it is done. For example, in the case of beans, what is important about it, how about the pollination, because one fear always is, or for some species, it's more important also what happens about cross-pollination. But I also think in the hobby gardens, you don't need to care too much. Anyway, if there is enough flowers, the bees and insects won't be so much eager to bring cross-pollination within the normally self-fertilizing plants. But if you want to really make sure that you get the exact same seeds out again, if you multiply it, you also get the information how much isolation distance you should keep. As I say, if there are a lot of other flowering plants, it's also the chance for cross-pollination are much less. And for example, in terms of beans with vulgaris species, it works kind of well. We normally don't get a lot of cross-pollination. The scarlet runner beans, Phaseolus cochineus, they are a bit something else. They have cross-pollination, so that's why we mostly find these kind of populations with different kernels. But I think it's also nice to have some in violet, some black, some white colored, and there you find the details about the life cycle, also how long you can keep the seeds. You should always keep them dry and in a cool place. For example, we always use these type of jars where we don't get air into it, and then this helps to keep it away after we have it much dried. We just heard about how you go to check whether the beans are dry or not. And then in terms of legumes, we have the speciality that some beetles also like our legumes, and therefore it's really good if you have a bigger quantity and you want to make sure your seeds are not damaged while being stored, to just keep it in the freezer for security, to kill the bean wevels, which might damage otherwise. Therefore, it's important that it's really dry. Besides this fingernail test, you can also hit it with a hammer, and then the seed breaks. And if it's like really dry, it will, it's not so much visible, but if it's really dry, it will crack together in different pieces. And if it's not really dry, it will just smashed and has a lot of moisture still in it. And then for freezing also, you can just use a glass. If you do it more professional, you can also, or for longer term, you can also use this kind of aluminium foil bags, which are again much more secure against the exchange of air on the long run. But if you just keep it in the fridge for 1 week to get rid of the wevels, it's fine to just keep it in a jar.
Since you're talking about freezing, Patrick, I interrupt. We have a question from Linus in the chat. He asked if a normal household freezer is enough to help against the bugs.
Yes, for sure. It's always about one thing. There's different motivation for freezing. Sometimes you just want to store it for a long time to make germination longer. Then you don't even need to freeze it. You can just also keep it cooler in the fridge or wherever. But if you want to get rid of the bugs, then a normal freezer is more than enough. It's nothing else what the gene banks do. They also keep it in normal freezing temperature, minus 18 degrees are perfectly fine. And just make sure that it's long enough, at least 1 week. Also, if you want to be sure it's you can leave it there for 2 weeks, no problem. Just make sure that it's really dry enough before, otherwise the ice cracks might damage the germination. But if once it's really dry, just give it in an empty jar glass and keep it there for 1-2 weeks, and then this really helps that you don't get a surprise by insects in your seeds later. And yeah, that's for the beans. And then we have it for the fava beans as well, the broad beans, which are also a bit more tricky with cross-pollination depending on the variety. But sometimes it's also nice, as we heard from Archinoa also, that we get new varieties, and that we can also practice ourselves a bit of selection and see what happens if our most favorite varieties come together, and maybe we can select some new house variety in our garden. So don't be afraid much of cross-pollination in legumes. Nothing serious will happen. If it happens, just something new might come out, and it can be also useful. Also nice to experiment a bit around, or to get some cross-pollinated seeds from these initiatives. And yeah, also for peas, as we heard from Archinoa as well, it's really nice colors they can have. If they are red and yellow and orange, the pods, it's really nice. You find all this information summarized here in this sheet. Also, always the links to the nice videos from Logomai are there, and you can just watch also the videos with pictures for this descriptions, and get an idea and see that it's really easy to multiply your own seeds with legumes. A few points to think about it, and maybe to make sure that you don't get damaged seeds, but then it's a really nice thing to do, and also to spread these nice varieties which you multiplied in your garden. Thanks a lot so far. Yeah.
Thank you, Patrick. We saw some comments in the chat. Someone confirming that 2 weeks at minus 18 is a good rule. Now I think we want to show you the next events before we go to the discussion. So maybe Lisa, you want to take over now?
Yes, I'm happy to take over. Should I also share the presentation myself? Nicola?
As you prefer. I can also keep sharing it.
You can share it quickly as you have it.
I don't have it now, sorry.
No worries. I can already say the next date will be on the 25th of October. It's a Tuesday, and we want to have a closer look at the pests and diseases.
Now the sound is frozen, Lisa. Still struggling with the internet connection. I don't know if someone else from the Global Bean Project wants to present the next events.
Sorry, or can you hear me better now, maybe?
Maybe if you move a bit more.
Yes. Okay, I will try again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry for this. So the next monthly meeting will happen on the Tuesday, 25th of October. The partner in our network who will coordinate this meeting is Cecilia Antoni, and she is inviting a couple of experts to look at the bugs and pests in our legume garden, to try to understand what they are by looking closely at pictures, and to answer all your questions and try to find solutions to counter them. So we hope that you will join us. You can find in the link in the chat the link to subscribe to the event, and I'm looking forward to see you in the next event. Thank you. And I leave the word here to Louise, if she's still here, maybe.
I am. Thank you very much. Yeah, so after seeing so many beautiful colors of beans and peas, I don't know for you, but I'm getting hungry, and that's a perfect transition for the cooking class we'll be having next week, as we'll be broadcasting live from Terra Madre, Salon del Gusto, which is the biggest slow food international event happening every 2 years in Torino. And we managed to invite 2 cooks who will be presenting tips and recipes to put more legumes on your plates. So we'll be sharing recipes and shopping list in advance. And you will be able to go shopping before the cooking class and join on Saturday around lunchtime to prepare a delicious lunch with 2 recipes with legumes. Nicola and Claudia will be moderating the event, and we will also have 1 researcher from Bosnia joining, and 1 producer from South Africa, who are all attending the event in Torino. So we will be all there, basically live broadcasting in your kitchen. So come and join. It will be nice and hopefully delicious.
Thank you, Louise. We have 1 more slide with more events that could be interesting at the Terra Madre Salone del Gusto.
Yeah.
About this?
Yeah. So Terra Madre Salon del Gusto, as I was mentioning, is the biggest slow food international event. It takes place every 2 years in Torino, and there's going to be a lot of different events around food, and legume is taking a big part. So there will be a biodiversity installation with legumes from all over the world. So we will be inviting delegates who are joining the event to bring a small amount of legumes to have a beautiful wall of legumes from all over the world. And if you're joining the cooking class, you will be also able to have a look at this exhibition, even if you're not in Turin. There's, for the people who are in Turin, there is an international meeting of the Slow Bean network, which is a network of producer for the moment, which is mainly settled in Italy, but also with producer worldwide. And there will be a discussion on Sunday about protein transition. And another event on Monday about Meatless Monday, which is a campaign from Slow Food USA and cooperating with the Slow Bean network. These events are directly in Torino, but there are also a lot of conferences and stuff which will be hybrid. So you might be able to follow it online as well. So don't hesitate to check out the website of Terra Madre Salón del Curso. There are a couple of links with the conferences, and you'll be able to follow the event. And if you're in Torino, don't hesitate to come to one of these meetups of bean lovers.
Great. Thank you. Well, I think that's all what we wanted to show you now. I think we can have a few more minutes if you are willing to know a little bit more from our speakers. It's already 6:20, so we got a little bit too enthusiastic about all the projects we wanted to share to you. But if you have more questions, of course, you can always contact us later as well. But now would be time for a few questions if you want. I don't know if there was something in the chat that I missed. Everyone is already hungry, like Louise said, just wants to cook with all these nice beans.
I have a question. I have a garden, and I was wondering at which stage I can harvest the pods, if the pods can still dry on their own, or if it's better to leave them dry on the field as long as possible.
I think it depends on what you want to harvest. If you want to harvest it for seed saving, it will be better if you let it dry on the plant. But if you want to harvest it for eating, it's up to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very clear answer. Perfect. More questions to Magdalena, Jorge, Ivana, Patrick, Gabby. I have one question for Magdalena about the crossing, the participatory project, and how the people were not crossing the varieties themselves, but you managed to give them the instructions so they could try it themselves, right? Are you still here, Magdalena?
So breeding is also, selecting for us is also part of the breeding, and we handed out crossings from around 15 lines to the people, but we also wrote a full instruction manual on how to cross peas for yourselves. And also we had show garden days where we invited all the participants and showed how we did the crossings in the first step.
Did you get feedback from people who did some crossings, who told you a few years afterwards that they got something that they liked?
Yes, yeah. And we also have other participatory projects where people do the crossings by themselves in their own gardens and farms after having received the instructions. And yeah, everyone was very surprised how easy it is and how there's not so much magic involved. I
never tried, and I would really love to try. Are these instructions also online on
yes,
public, or do you need to box the paper?
I can put a link for the piece directly in this chat. It's in German though, but you can also look at the pictures, and it's very self-explanatory.
Okay, thanks a lot.
And I add another one on tomatoes as well.
Cool. Is it also very easy to cross? Nice.
Yes.
Okay, I don't see much more questions. We already are way over time, so I think it means that the presentations were clear enough and that the public got the information they hoping to get. I guess then we can go we can go cook the beans that we have put in the kitchen to soak maybe earlier today. That's what I did, at least. I was also fighting in my room with some of the insects we talked about because they escaped from some of my seed bags. So I had to find the variety that was guilty, and I found it. So my room is not full of flying insects anymore. Thanks a lot for the links, Magdalena. Thanks a lot to everyone for attending, for your contribution. I would like to thank again all the speakers for their great work and their willingness to share what they are doing. It was very inspiring for me. And yeah, I hope to see you at the next meeting with the bugs and tests in October. Goodbye.